Welcome, humans, to the Neuron AI Explained. I'm your host, Corey Knowles, and today I'm here with an absolute stranger who's never visited our podcast before. Hi, Grant Harvey. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. I didn't realize this was the first time we were meeting, so this is I'm clearly underdressed. I mean, my goodness, I'm in the presence of
You
royalty.
are, but it's okay. It's okay. I am actually overdressed for my normal day. Uh, all right. So, jokes aside, if you didn't know, Google Labs is where Google tests out its wildest new AI experiments and ideas before they take them mainstream. And today, they let us peek under the hood a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to sit down with 3 product leads who are actually building these tools and got a chance to have them not only demo the tools, but let us ask them anything live.
So we're going to go back to back to back like we're Michael Jordan with 3 separate tools today that we think you should know. That's Mixboard for visual ideation, Flow for AI filmmaking, and Opal for building AI apps with zero code.
We're going to show you the tools from the product leads in charge of making them. So, whether you are a creative, a marketer, or just AI curious, stick around. We'll show you exactly how they work and what you can actually do with them today, with perhaps a few hints about where the tools are going next.
Ooh, so buckle up, buckaroos. Here it is. Enjoy. And we're joined by Jaclyn Konzelman, Director of Product Management at Google Labs. Jaclyn, how's it going? Welcome to the Neuron.
Great. Thanks so much for having me here, Corey and Grant. Super excited to chat with you all.
Oh, good. We're excited to have you here because there's a lot of cool stuff y'all are working on over there, and we're anxious to learn more.
Love it. Yeah, been up to some fun stuff here on Google Labs team. So excited to take you through Mixboard today.
Yeah, so I understand that Mixboard is an AI powered concepting board that helps you explore, expand, and refine your ideas. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Sweet. I'm excited to see it. I guess my first question, because this is my first time ever actually getting in the mix here. Would a comparable tool be something like Figma, or what would be like what set this up for us? What can we expect?
Yeah, definitely. So I think actually just taking a step back, one of the things we've been really excited about is what are all the new ways that people can interact with AI now that we have these amazing models that uncover new capabilities and really just new paradigms and new workflows. And so we approached Mixboard with kind of a fresh set of eyes that just said, now that we have these models, they can produce images, they can produce text, like what is the ideal way to ideate? How can we use these models in the right format to help people explore their ideas? And so that's really where we started off with Mixboard is wanting to just have, a blank canvas to let people explore, expand, and refine their ideas. So we really wanted to just kind of approach Mixboard with this idea that new AI models were creating new opportunities for new workflows and allowing users to think in creative new ways. And what would be a great tool or experience to enable users to do that? And that's kind of where we landed on this open ended canvas that really doesn't have any constraints and leans into letting
Ooh,
both the models shine, but also users' creativity come through.
cool. It sounds
That's
really
awesome.
neat.
Yeah. So I see we're looking at your screen here, and you told us before we jumped on that this is actually live from your own mind. Yeah.
Yes, yes. You get a glimpse into where my head goes at times.
That's awesome. Do you want to open up one of these projects and show us around a little bit, or create a new one? What should we do?
Yeah, definitely. Why don't we jump into a new one and then I'll take you out and we can explore some of the stuff that have in the works already as well.
Awesome. Yeah,
Cool,
that'd be
Okay,
great.
sweet.
so perfect. And I'm gonna have both of you involved in part of this demo as well, so we can get some creativity out of both of you.
Yay.
Love
Uh,
it.
so we'll start with a new project. And the first thing you'll notice is that we do actually try to suggest a few different starter prompts in case you don't know what to do initially. But because I have both of you and you seem like creative, fun folks, why don't you give me an idea of what you might want to create a board around?
Hmm. Should we do something like for the neuron, Corey, or should we do something random and totally out there?
Like, is it the Neuron? Is it
Well, we
Dungeons and
could do
Dragons? Is
for
it, it could be anything.
because I was thinking we could do let's try to create so Ollie is our cat mascot for the neuron. Uh readers of the Neuron will know that Ollie shows up in lots of different scenarios. Maybe he is, working on weights at the gym. Maybe he is, typing on a
Boxing.
computer. So perhaps we could come up with a lot of different ideas for Ollie. But maybe we could start with like a playground for an orange cat. How about something like that?
Would a picture of Ollie help you get started?
You know what? It actually is a great way to get started as well, but if you, wanna just type in "a playground for an orange cat," we can give this a go. If
Ooh.
you had a picture, you can easily upload an image here, and this is a fun new feature that we just launched, which is a selfie camera, so you can
Oh
also
wow.
take a quick picture. If you had Ollie in your hands, you could even take a selfie with Ollie and
Oh,
throw
that's
that photo
awesome.
into the board, but we'll start with this open-ended prompt, and we'll give it a second and see what it produces, and the
Love
whole
it.
idea here is that we wanna just as quick as possible, throw some stuff onto this open-ended Mixboard canvas so you can take the ideas from there and see what different creative journeys or sparks or paths you go down.
Oh, I
This
love
is
it.
so cool.
It's kind of a mood board. I remember doing things like this, in
Yeah.
photography, like getting ready for shoots and stuff. This is so cool.
And now you can even adjust the images or edit them. So let's see if we can add an orange cat walking on this.
This is great. I'm assuming this is powered by Nano Banana?
So yeah, behind the scenes right now, we're on the original Nano Banana for all of these images. So you can see this right here. We now
Oh,
have
perfect.
Ollie or a orange cat at the very least walking on here. Um,
I love
you
it.
might have seen I just quickly clicked this as well. So you can also regenerate images behind the scenes. You can create more like this. So if you're feeling stuck and you're just like, hey, I want more images like this, quickly duplicate this block so that you can also create a bunch of different variations on these. So like maybe we'll
Wow.
duplicate this block and I could do something like you know, turn this into a charcoal sketch version. And you'll be
Ooh,
able to
that's awesome.
do style transfers. It's a really cool open-ended way to just think abstractly about a bunch of stuff. And then you also have the ability to pull in text or generate text blocks. So one of the things that I played around with, and I'll show you this in a different board, but as you can see here, we now have a charcoal sketch version of this image right here. You could also say like, what are the top 3 reasons for owning a pet cat? I also have a pet cat and a pet dog at home. But
Nice.
as you
Same.
can see here, it gives you a quick sort of summary. And hey, look, my board's getting crowded, so I can always zoom out, scroll, expand. And one of the other new features we recently added was the ability to have more than one board. So as your
Ooh.
Cool.
ideas really start to take off, you can start to organize them in different ways in these subboards
With,
here.
like, boards stuck on the board as
We do
well.
not have that support yet, but that sounds
Okay.
like a great feature request to consider.
That's awesome. I have a silly question.
Yeah,
Can we make the orange cat on the hammock thing there? Can we make him into, I don't know, an anime cartoon or something?
let's try it out and see what happens.
Let's see what he
To
does.
your original point, Jaclyn, this is so fast. Like the speed
Yes,
at which this is happening is really, really fast.
it is.
I love it. It's funny. We do wanna keep improving speed as well. I'm not sure if this one okay, so that one didn't quite work out, but we can keep iterating and practicing on, some
Okay.
of these prompts, and sometimes it's just the finesse of how you wanna word this. We can say, "Create this image as an anime cartoon." And the best part about, ideating and brainstorming is there's usually no wrong answers. So this kind of lets you go down a bunch of different paths and try different things. We've seen users use Mixboard for a variety of different use cases, everything from more professional side of things. So one of the most interesting users we actually talked to was somebody who was designing a bunch of logos and images that they were then using to print on t-shirts and do on-demand merchandise. So he was actually using Mixboard to help power his entire business.
Totally.
But then there's an entire segment that does it more for personal use cases. So if we go out here for a second, you'll notice Some of the stuff I've been playing around with here are, website designs. I'm using this to just collect a bunch of different things that I'm inspired about, and this is kind of a one of my personal side projects is trying to figure out a new website redesign. Another one that I have on my personal account is actually trying to use it for home decor
Oh,
and
nice.
Mm,
ideas. So I'll
that's a
have a
great use
picture
case.
of my basement wall and I'll be trying to play around with like, should I paint this accent wall dark gray or should I do one of the like fluted wood panels on it? And it's a really easy way to kind of like
Ooh,
visualize and ideate on that. Or fashion mood boards is another one that
Oh,
folks
yeah.
have used it for. And then
totally.
there's just like the fun creative stuff, which is basically the exploration we just went down with Ollie the cat, and also some of the ones that I have up here, like my fun origami zoo animal mix board, which was really fun to play around with.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
that's
like the
so cool.
little Scottish terrier down there at the bottom.
Yeah.
I like this teddy bear. He just
Oh,
looks so cute.
he does.
So I've noticed that in the corner there's a button that says transform, and I think
Ooh.
well actually why don't you tell us what it does?
Yeah, definitely. So the biggest feature we just launched actually last week was the ability to go from your mix board and actually transform that into a compelling visual story or presentation. And the way that works is once you've added enough content onto the board, you can unlock this transform feature. And you click this, and we ask you a few questions. You can give us some guidance, basically. You could also just hit transform and we'll take it from there. But step number one, this visual story or presentation that you're creating, the first choice is, do you want a more visual forward deck? Or is this for reading and consumption, in which case it's going to have a lot more text and be a lot more, dense in terms of how we deliver the content? The next one is simply saying, what is the story you want to tell? Because Mixboard is such an open ended canvas, we take a best guess at four suggestions on what story we think you might be trying to tell. And we do that by actually looking at your Mixboard and using our vision models to understand what is on your Mixboard and suggest these things. So,
That's
crafting the
cool.
wild seems appropriate, or origami and mental flow. But you could also just enter in your own custom story that you want us to tell, and then you pick a style format for your presentation. And I think this is one of the other interesting areas that's been kind of this like AI unlock, which is we don't just have a set number of templates that we're always showing every user. We actually look at the board itself and try to infer, what do we think the best style is based off of the images and the content that you've put on your board. Of course, you can also select custom style and then hit a prompt or enter in a prompt here and click transform. And it'll take about 15 to 20 minutes, but it'll turn itself into this amazing presentation. And for that, let me actually go into one that I've already generated
Yeah.
Oh,
here,
cool.
which is my husband's his birthday was earlier this month, and so we took the kids to the zoo. I have three girls, a 4-year-old, and then twins who are 2.5 years
Oh,
old.
wow.
Fun.
It's a very busy house,
I bet it
as you
is.
might imagine.
Yeah.
Um, but I turned his entire birthday zoo day into a fun presentation. And so using those steps that I just showed previously, I'm able to actually put together like a really cute memory from that
Oh,
weekend.
This is
And
so cute.
a really cool thing here is you can see I was in the middle of editing this slide, but you can click into any of these and you can also just prompt to make changes. So what I'd been playing around with here previously is we'll delete this, but you could once again click on any of these, do something like circle this. And if you want to replace this image with a different one, you could also upload an image here and simply prompt, change this image to the one I've included here. And
oh,
I
wow.
ended up doing that because although the initial images that it had selected were pretty great, there were a few even better ones in Mixboard that I wanted to use. So you can always go back to the board and decide that you want to one shot download an image. And then when you're going back into the presentation mode, you can replace any images that way. But
Oh, cool.
it's just like such a fun, delightful way to transform memories now at this point too.
It is. It is. Now for a quick message from our sponsors at MIT xPRO. The AI landscape has evolved. Success now hinges on moving from concepts to controlled high impact deployment. Teams that build thoughtful execution plans are gaining efficiency, resilience, and lasting strategic leads. That's why MIT xPro and the Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory CSAIL created a new course for leaders who want practical guidance and not vague inspiration. It's called Deploying AI for Strategic Impact. This 9-week course, led by 15 MIT professors, teaches rigorous evaluation of AI models, accurate understanding of infrastructure demands like compute, data, and costs, and practical deployment strategies informed by real world case studies across manufacturing, healthcare, logistics, cybersecurity, and more. If you're responsible for AI outcomes and want to build real deployment confidence, check out this newest course from MIT. Links in the description. Explore deploying AI for strategic impact and enroll today.
That's so awesome. So, asking a follow-up question on that point, it will maintain the same layout. So, if you were to replace that image, scrolling up a couple slides, like let's say,
It's not going to regenerate the whole
yeah,
slide, right?
it'll just fill it into that one spot.
It does actually regenerate the whole slide, which is the interesting part. So
Ooh.
this is
Okay.
powered by Nano Banana Pro. Now it
Okay.
will regenerate the whole slide, but the model is really good at understanding exactly what you want changed in the image. So you could
Right.
actually do something like just say circle this and select that image to change, and everything else should look the same at the
Okay.
end of it. But behind the scenes, it is a regeneration.
Okay.
Really
Okay.
cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And
Cool.
I know that that's true because I've used Nano Banana and it's very good at those precise
It
image
is.
editing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
That is so awesome. So I mean you're the project manager on this tool, right?
Yes, I actually just brought on a new PM who's, jumping in and will be helping lead Mixboard into his next chapter in the
Very
new year,
cool.
but it is under my team, which, I'm excited to continue to help push
Awesome.
it in many directions.
That's very cool. So along those same lines, like when you first started creating this, who did you have in mind and who do you think will benefit most from this tool? Because I can see so many different use cases. So I'm curious for you as like the person behind creating it, like who you are really targeting with this.
I think that, right now we're really trying to make creativity accessible to everyone. I think one of the best things that's happened with these AI models is there's these amazingly skilled tools that now anybody has the ability to create a like work of art oil painting image or a super cute, origami shaped teddy bear, for
Yeah.
example. But you still have this challenge of needing to come up with those ideas, needing to
Yeah.
now know that you have the tools, but like, how do you spark the creativity in folks that may not have thought that they could build such things previously? And so when we think about who is Mixboard for, we're really trying to make it accessible for anybody to just like get in and start exploring their ideas. We want to keep it easy to use. We want to make it fun. We think that the act of creation should be enjoyable. And so Mixboard is really meant to just be a really easy entry point to just get started and explore your ideas and your creativity in any direction, and appeal to a large audience as a result of that. This is not
For
meant to be
sure.
a power user tool, but really it's meant to just bring creativity and make it accessible to everybody by leveraging AI and using that to help fuel and power human creativity.
I can see use cases both for individuals, for graphic design teams. I could see
Totally.
there's, a variety of things you could do. I keep going to really nerdy stuff though and thinking like like a D&D campaign and having a
Totally.
theme board and or even like, a new wardrobe or
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that that's the power of mixed board is that it applies to so many different use cases and so many different users. And we want to make sure that we continue to maintain the ability for many different users and use cases
yeah.
to come in here. I had one teammate who was using it to help plan a bachelorette party weekend.
Oh, wow.
And then I had another person who's really leaned into the home redecorating side of things and is using Mixboard to like imagine what her backyard would look like even for like themed parties and what her living room could look like with all this different furniture that she's been considering buying right now. So it really does kind of span everything from both professional use cases to like personal use cases. And
Totally.
then even as I mentioned, like the creativity side of things of just what is a cool storybook? My kids love watching me as I'm making different fun creations here. And it's funny you actually mentioned earlier when you were helping me write that prompt for Ollie the cat, dragons, because this morning's first thing that I made with my daughter was a dragon made out of clouds. And so you
Oh,
can imagine
wow.
like a mixed board
Cute.
that's just entirely imagining what are a bunch of different cloud shaped animals that could exist here, and how can I then write a story off of all of that. It kind of like just lets you explore and tug at these different ideas. And as we're chatting, I'm actually going to try and do that right
You
now.
could go from
A
an idea to a universe.
Yeah, exactly. You don't always
Mm.
know where you're going to end up when you start here, and that's kind of one of the joys or the magic sparks that I found with
Oh,
it.
that's fun.
I was just listening to, I believe it was the CEO from Linear on TPBN today, and he was talking about design. And one of the things he was saying is that design is such a process of discovery where you kind of have to go out and make a lot of like just like basically essentially do what Mixboard is doing. Come up with a bunch of different directions where you have to find the your way through all of the possibilities. So I think this is a perfect tool for designers as well.
I know I just saw the words flux capacitor on the screen a minute ago.
You definitely did. As I mentioned, we're trying to keep Mixboard fun and quirky. So we do want to have a few of those Easter eggs throughout that just make you kind of second guess and say, "Wait, did it really just say that?" And usually the answer is yes, it did. If it's in the case of Mixboard,
I love it.
These
I
are
love
so
it.
cool.
They really
they are.
are.
I will say, like, if I was doing this for my kids, maybe I'm going to delete some of these that feel a little bit
They're a little too
darker.
gnarly.
Yeah.
But then you can also say, like, okay, write a fun poem about this. And
That is
this is
so
the
cool.
cool area also where like you can kind of go from both text to image and back and forth. And then you could say something like, um, what happens next? And just there are no rules with Mixboard, which is
Yeah.
another fun part of it. So now I've like, what happens next in this poem? We've just decided it's this thing. And then you could say, create a cartoon image for this and see what happens based off of that.
Yeah.
Another thing is you can select multiple images as well. We'll give this a second.
You could go
And
children's book with it even if you wanted or something.
100%. So this is what happens next in this story. You could also, take 3 or 4 of these images and say like create a jello themed version of these dragons, because I was in fact trying to make axolotls out of jello last night, via an AI image generator, not in real life. That would be more challenging.
I was curious. I was about to
You would
ask.
need a good tray for that.
I was like, that is
Yes,
an activity there.
but now we have our jello themed dragon.
That looks delicious. I wanna eat that.
I would
You know, it
absolutely
kind of
eat
looks
that
like
dragon.
candy.
How
On the
cool.
children's book point, actually, this is a real use case that I was playing with, and I'm still gonna probably write about this at some point. It's trying to make an entire children's book end to end with Nano Banana Pro. And I started doing it the other day, but I'm wondering now if Mixboard would be the better choice to do it because I have, let's say, like 3 starting frames. I have like the cover of the book, I have like, let's say, like the first 3 pages. Then I have a list of all of the pages, or like the pages and what needs to happen on each page. Could I theoretically give that to Mixboard and have it create the rest of the pages for me? I don't
You could
know.
certainly give it a try. One of the nice things that we have enabled, which actually came like 2 days after the initial launch, is if we go into uh here, this was another fun one that I made actually, and I'll show you one of the tips or tricks that will help with the storybook side is I recently went on a hike with my family as well up in Yosemite. And so we turned that into a really fun presentation here. And for this
This
one,
is
I
so cool.
actually gave a bunch of both memories from the trip itself. So, like tips that made our hike enjoyable with the kids, because it's always helpful to remember that for future hikes. This one I actually prompted and asked for some interesting facts about the hike. Here, I actually downloaded my Strava entry because I always track the hikes that we do. So I uploaded
Yeah.
that. And then this was a download of a bunch of interesting facts about the Merced Grove hike, which is where we went. So when we go into the presentation mode, you'll notice it just nicely pulls all of this together
Oh, yeah,
in
it
these
does.
like fun little like pine cones as bullet points. I wouldn't have thought of that, but I love it now that I've seen it.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's amazing.
Same.
this is wild. Like it just
Whoa.
generated this based off of like the Strava entry that I had in here.
Little
But
infographic. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, because Nano Banana is great at infographics. And if you do decide to go the route of trying to make your story here, one thing you can do is we allow you to actually download each slide as an image. So you can also start to like pick and choose which ones work the best. I've had
Yeah.
some experiences where I actually had to give a keynote talk last week and I used Mixboard. I just dumped a bunch of my previous blog posts, a bunch of interesting other slides I generated previously, and I had it come up with a presentation for me, and I didn't end up wanting to use every single slide, but there were a few really well done slides that I wouldn't have even thought of trying to visualize my concepts in those ways. And so I downloaded those and I ended up with like this patchwork of a presentation where some of them were entirely like Mixboard generated slides that just really added an extra level of like fun and well designed slides into the entire presentation.
How
Were you
neat.
able to like either through prompting it originally or re-prompting it make it match the aesthetic of the deck that you were creating? Like how did that work?
It's funny, what I actually ended up doing is I downloaded an image here from Mixboard. I then used Gemini to help me identify what fonts Mixboard had decided to use, and I actually changed the visual style of the rest of my slide deck to match the slides that Mixboard had helped me produce because those were just
Yeah.
better design than what I had been doing off on my own.
That's awesome. I
I
love
feel
that.
that in my
Yeah, I would
soul.
have totally done that way. Yeah. I'm like, this is better. I'm gonna go with this.
So is all of the text also generated by Nano Banana, or is it coming from like Gemini?
It is generated by Nano Banana, but all of it is powered by our world class models.
Yeah.
So the end output here though is it's a Nano Banana image is
Yeah.
what you're seeing, not like layers of text, which is the
Okay.
interesting sort of like paradigm shift almost in a way that this technology is enabling what used to be multiple layers to just be a flat image. Because at the end of
Yeah.
the day, any slide that you're seeing or any like, infographic that you're seeing, it might have been multiple layers to build it, but all that you see is that end
The
image. And now we have
flattened.
models that just go straight to that end image.
Yeah.
I have a couple like future focused questions, but is there anything else you want to show us before we get to like where this goes next?
Yeah, I think just I've showed you kind of how to mark up the images when you're in the presentation mode, but also just making sure you know that you can easily click into any of these and it takes you into a similar edit flow. So one of the let me actually go into a different board here because I do actually like the way that that one transformed or that one turned out. So let's try something fun here. Let's take this and then let's also say a castle made out of gingerbread. So we're going to generate that right now. Um, and there's some fun ways that you can kind of mix and match the images within the board as well that are worth exploring. So now you could click into here and you could say, okay, I am going to circle this right here and put an X. We'll give this a try and say, put the dragon in the green circle with an X beside the I wasn't called a gingerbread house, gingerbread castle. And we'll try and see how that one works out. But it's this idea of like not only combining images, but you can mark up images, you can mix and match them in any which way you want.
Wow.
But definitely like worth jumping in and playing around and just seeing where your imagination can take you, knowing that uh we have this open-ended canvas and we'll continue to add feature requests as folks are using it more and giving us more feedback as well. I think that's one of the other like big things to note is just we wanted to get this out as an early experiment. Oh, look, there it is. Ha,
That
we've got a
worked.
dragon flying.
That worked
Here's a
perfectly.
That
gingerbread
worked
castle.
perfectly. So
It
it
But we,
almost
it
we did
both
want to
cut the dragon out and placed it there. That's really cool.
and it seems like it matched the lighting. Perhaps the lighting just worked well with it, but it doesn't look completely out of place, I
No,
think.
it doesn't. It
It looks
doesn't
like it
look
fits.
like you cut out a dragon and stuck it on the paper, like it
this is
like
Yeah,
it
true.
could.
it looks
But
good,
also
yeah.
I love that you said my Jello dragon doesn't look completely out of place in my gingerbread castle. That alone is a
Well, they're
wonderful.
both food.
Nothing wrong with that sentence at all, is there?
No, it is spot on.
Yeah, it looks perfect. It looks perfectly like it goes perfectly together.
It does.
Well, what's interesting about this is it's almost like recreating the capabilities of a layer-based system without needing the complications of a layer-based system.
Yeah.
So like if I was like a professional graphic designer, I can mix and match things here with just text and drawing and showing things visually where I want it to go, and it's simple to use. No
Yep,
layer management.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
It makes you think about what happens next now that we're starting to, like, really revisit old assumptions on how things should work.
But you
You're right.
could still edit it, I assume. You could say, "Turn the dragon, 90 degrees counterclockwise," or something silly like that, and I'm pretty sure it would do it.
Let's see.
I won't hold it
Oh yeah, that's
against
a
it
good
if it
one.
doesn't, but I bet it can.
I'm gonna fingers crossed and see if it's able to listen to this. You have the right expectation though. We should be able to do things like that. And as I say often also, this is the dumbest the models will ever be. So if something doesn't work today, A,
Right.
just try reprompting it sometimes, but also know that it will get better. Okay, let me
We're
try
just
one more
early.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, give it the best of end. Give it like two or three shots. See if it can do it.
Turn the dragon in the red circle to face the other direction. All
Perfect.
right, let's see if it
There's a lot
listens.
of assumptions in there, right? Because it has to be smart enough to know what the other direction is. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so if it can do it, that's pretty amazing.
I'll be dang. What a cool tool. What a cool tool.
Um,
I'm already thinking of things I'm going to do when I sit down with it tonight.
All right. Well,
give
that one
it
didn't work, but
give
That's
it one
okay.
more. Maybe
okay.
say like turn it from facing the left to face the right and see if it gets it that way.
The truth is, that dragon is a twisty, curly dude. It's entirely possible face might be throwing
It's
it off.
complicated. Yeah, it's a complicated image, you know?
Yeah, it's not like a
How many gummy
human.
dragons are in Gemini's training data? We have to ask ourselves.
It's a very busy image as well. I'll give it that much. We somehow
For sure.
landed. Okay. All right. It was able to actually make some changes. It did
Okay,
There
not
we
change.
go.
It did not turn around, but it did breathe fire
and
I
and
like
turn
that.
tentacle.
gold. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
I
alright, at
I
least
think
it's fun.
I think if you were even more precise with the language, it would do it. And from my
Yeah.
Yeah,
experience with Nano Banana, I think it will. Yeah.
that
I
is
agree. I think there's still a bit of, like, prompting work that I could do here, which is what I also always say to folks, like, sometimes it takes a few
yeah,
iterations, and then there's
Yeah.
other things you can do, like, you could always make the dragon in this image face the other way and then put it back,
Yeah.
or put it
yeah.
on this image here, and that might be something it's able to do a little easier.
The original has a very fruit roll-up Astropop vibe. Uh, how cool.
What I like about Mixboard is that, like, normally when I work with Nano Banana, it's usually in Gemini itself. So this, I'll have to start another chat or I'll have to, go a couple rounds back and forth
Here's
in
a
the chat window.
picture. Here's a
This is so
picture.
much
Yeah,
more, this fits the visual editing workflow so much better, in my
I
opinion.
agree.
Yeah, we're really trying to lean into both a, like, visual first idea exploration, but then layering in more and more as I've been using it, the text elements become really interesting to think about how to pull those in, and then you can imagine, like, what other modalities make the most sense to pull in next. Those are the types of ideas that we're starting to explore as well on the team.
That's
So
cool.
that was two of my questions, actually. One, would you ever expand Mixboard to include video?
I think that it depends on where we wanna focus. I think that right now Flow is an amazing video tool, so I'm tempted to say, like, we don't really need to go in that direction. Because if you're trying to do a, amazing video, Flow is probably the tool that you wanna go to on that front. If, however, you wanted just, like, a quick 5-second GIF that animated one of your images, like, maybe that's something that makes sense to bring into Mixboard. Similar to one of the recent launches we actually had last week, on my team was Pomeli, which is
Hmm.
a tool that allows SMBs to create on-brand creatives. And we allowed one-click animation of any image into like an animated visual creative. So you could imagine that maybe we would explore at some point in the future the ability to one-click animate this, and maybe this automatically flies through the sky for a few seconds. Not to say that we're looking into that exactly right now. There's other things on our list, but like I think we
Yeah.
would want to take an opinionated stance on what are fun, delightful ways we could bring in moments
Yeah.
like that rather than lean directly into video, which is where I would say, Flow is absolutely the tool to go do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And then my other question is, would you ever consider new ways of working with a Gemini Pro on Mixboard, i.e., via voice commands, like being able to chat with it with your voice, or being able to draw alongside Gemini? And like, because I think there was a tool I saw a while back that's like Draw with Me, where you can like draw and the AI will draw with you. With something like that.
Yeah, I think those are very much within the like realm of things that we want to explore. I think getting
Cool.
feedback from users who are also using the product is going to help us sort of calibrate and steer towards what we want to prioritize. I think as much fun as this has been like showing you all the stuff we've been doing, one of the things that we're also very aware of is just how do we get people over the hump of knowing where to even start and making it a lot easier to, solve that blank canvas problem. And so we're thinking a lot about, how does onboarding feel more seamless and really get you into that creative experience to begin with. And then also how do we continue to let you expand upon your idea? A lot of Mixboard right now kind of relies on a user having an idea and self-directing on where to go. I think there's interesting new ways we can create experiences or help shape the tool to help a user or to help pull an idea out from a user's head and kind of co-create. So you said draw with me. I think it goes beyond just draw with me to like co-create with me, like get
Yeah.
creative with me. What does that type of an experience start to look like?
Ooh,
That's
that's
cool.
cool.
I like that.
There's
You're
so
thinking
much
about
we
it the
could
right
do.
way. Yeah, I'm just excited. I mean, I guess like let's say, Mixboard a year from now, 2 years from now, what's your dream for what it does from here? What do you want it to unlock for
Oh
people?
boy. I think one of the most interesting things to me with the pace of AI right now is that it's accelerating so fast, it's opening up a realm of things that are possible that would have almost been impossible to predict 6 months ago. Like, if you told me that the way to reimagine creating compelling presentations was through an image model, no, I would not have been able to predict that. And so I think more than anything as we think especially on a 1 to 2-year timeline horizon, I just wanna be able to keep an open mind. I wanna be able to listen to users, build what they want, or at least understand what they wish they could do, and then figure out how to turn that into a compelling product experience for them. And I think it goes a little hand in hand. Certain obvious things like people wanted a bigger board. Great. That's a pretty easy feature request for us
Yep.
to meet. People want to know, how do I get started when I just stare at a blank canvas? That takes a lot more product thinking on the team, and I want to be able to spend time on that. And then also just let the technology lead us a little bit as well. If a new
Yeah.
model capability comes along that just makes you rethink something the way Nano Banana has, I want to be able to jump on that and figure out how do we bring that into the product? How do we bring that to users in a way that gets them excited and unlocks that net new possibility or that net new shape or format that could exist in the future? So it's an answer and a non-answer, which is to say, I want to keep being creative, and I think there's many directions it could go still.
Yeah. Well, Jaclyn, thanks so much for sharing this with us today. What a cool tool. What's the easiest way for someone to go find it?
Great question. Mixboard.google.com. Check it out. You can also go to labs.google, which has all of the cool experiments coming out of labs these days. Mixboard is on there. And then if you want to give it a try and have any feedback, check out the Google Labs account on X or just ping me directly. We're always looking and the team's always looking for feedback. So
Okay.
please share it if you have any feedback as you're playing around with this tool. We're listening.
Absolutely. There are so many different apps and tools and odds and ends on Google Labs. It's really
It's awesome.
it's almost intimidating, but it's laid out in such a simple, clear way. I love that there's a description that says what it is and what it does and click here. It's really laid out beautifully, and that's not something the AI space has been great at, nor are general websites. I regularly go on rants about websites that don't say what they do, and I appreciate that this really does that well.
I'm glad to hear it. It is a very exciting time to be building, and there's just so much out there that is worth trying these days.
Well, Jaclyn, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, everyone, and now we're here with Tomas Iljic. Tomas is the Senior Director of Product Management at Google Labs, and he oversees Flow, which is a cool product in Google Labs that we're going to talk about today. Tomas, how are you? It's great to meet you, sir.
It's great to meet you too. I'm good. Excited to talk about AI, talk about this product.
Awesome. Same.
Awesome. So Flow is an AI-powered filmmaking tool designed to show and tell, or designed around a show and tell philosophy. Do you want to show and tell us a little bit about it?
How funny.
Yeah, of course. Um, yeah,
Sorry, I had to.
I mean, but you're exactly right. Actually, that's part of the starting point is when we started playing with this technology, for the several past years, we realized that like prompting had to go away eventually, and it had to become much closer to kind of like where the users are, and what they want is basically just show and tell and just keep iterating on things. And so, the mental model is yes, you should be showing and telling, you should be feeling like you can mold the clay and kind of like, you get an output and then you can continue refining it. Um, so last year, probably in December, we launched VO2, which was kind of a new model. And we realized like, oh, people are really able to do some stuff that's really interesting now. And so following that this year, we sprinted to build a flow for IO, and then it's been launched since then. Um, it is a tool for you're right, for a AI filmmaker or an AI filmmaking tool. Right now, we focused initially on like the niche of people who we thought would be interested, and really it's been like interesting to just build it with creatives. We're trying to understand like the name is reflective of kind of our ambition here is to figure out like how do we keep these creatives in the flow? How do we meet them where they want? How we change kind of the UI or even the interaction patterns so that they can, kind of like put their vision out there and then start kind of crafting it and getting to where you want. So it's a journey, but this is where we launch Flow.
That's awesome.
Um, and yeah, I'm very excited to just show you a little bit. Maybe I'll just um,
Go ahead.
I would say that there's this really cool, if you go to flow.google, you'll see like there's a really cool video here that we've made with a lot of the creatives we've worked with when we built it.
Wow.
I encourage you to take a look at it. Yeah, it's the technology has done
Ooh.
great steps. But I'll just jump into the tool. So I'm going to share this silver tab here. So when you enter Flow, actually, maybe I'll just you have all your projects inside. So you can see my projects, for example, over here. And I'll just open up one that has a bunch of, cool examples, I think, that I can show you. Right now, we support both video and images. But I'll start with video because this has been our starting point. And you can do, there's multiple modes in the tool. So you can start from like text to video, which is something that people, have known and used for a couple of years now. And obviously, it's very fun, but it's also kind of like much harder, I would say, to craft a prompt that matches exactly kind of what you want.
Right.
But with these latest models, physics are really good. They're incredibly good at photorealism. They have audio, you can get your
Mhm.
characters to speak. Right now, you can't control like the voice across multiple clips, but that's obviously, something that will be working in the future. And so you end up with things like this with, you know,
You see, this whole stretch, this used to be nothing but wildflowers. My father and I, we'd walk it every Sunday.
And so you can see, it's starting to become like, really interesting in terms of the clips that you can get. And but it requires you to, try different prompts. Some people come up with very elaborate, super complex, almost like JSON templated ways of calling the model. So still kind of a lot of friction. And so this is why,
I loved that you could hear his foot on the gravel road.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, just the fact that there's audio, sound
That
effects, dialogue. I mean, that's all new, relatively new with VO3, right? In 3.1.
that's exactly right. Actually, VO3, so I think the big reveal with VO3 was it had audio, and I think that kind of really just, it gives like a new dimension almost to videos suddenly, compared
Yes.
to, the ones without sound. And now everybody expects sounds and expects sounds to work really perfectly. So we'll keep working on it. But yes, it adds an incredible dimensionality to the output. Um, but then, as I was saying, obviously, it's still very limiting to be working just with text, particularly when you have a vision in mind. And so you'll see there's all these different modes in the tool, particularly frames to video, which allows you to kind of like almost you keyframe the different pieces of the scene, and then you kind of animate them or stitch between two frames. You can do first and last. And that allows you for, it's almost like another way to just communicate. It's like, actually, I want this environment, but I want you to just like zoom into the environment, for example. So I start from this picture and I just ask, imagine you're a drone going into the scenery, right? So now I have a little bit more control is I can describe the environment visually, and I can get the camera to kind of move into it and describe that a little more. Um,
So that's starting from a still
yeah, so
image, right?
that's so you have this little button here, and everything you generate in Flow that allows you to just reuse the prompt. And as you can see here, I have a first frame, which is this image I uploaded, and the prompt was, FPV camera into the picture and throughout the apartment. Um, Now, what you can do as well is obviously you can also condition on the first and last frame. So, the different models, ours and other companies' models now are getting much better also at first and last frame. And so, if you want to do, for example, a looping GIF here for my daughter, where I want this little scroll to come in and out, I can actually just specify like this is our starting point, this is the end point, and here's what I want to happen in between. And the thing I'll call out, which is super interesting when you think about these models and what they can do, is you can see it matches also, everything that you're trying to insert in those scenes and in between those frame, the model will try to match and feel that it's coherent. And so you'll see I'll hammer this theme probably throughout the demo, but I think of these as like little simulators in a way. People think of them still as just a function that generates something, but I think of them as simulators, and you're giving them anchoring points. This is kind of what I mean. Now simulate this thing I'm asking you to do. You can do so obviously with audio, so you can do the same thing. I can have a first frame with a character, and I can she can be speaking again. She can speak in multiple languages. It's actually supporting you can ask it in
Wow.
Nothing
Korean,
like cocoa in
French.
the morning.
You can ask for the types of background music that you want or not, and you can try different things. Um, Continuing down the interaction path, this is something really cool that we figured out, which we call doodling. So sometimes, you have your first frame and you're like, you know what, like that's kind of what I want, but I also want these other modifications. And again, text is a very poor way to just like describe everything. And so it supports doodling. So what you can see here, I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see, we added some annotations. You can edit your image. The way you would do so is, if you had a frame here, add an ingredient, you would just edit it, and then in the edit, you would be able to add some annotations on the frame that you just uploaded
On the image
on
itself.
the image itself, and then you would
Wow.
use this as your starting point. And so what you can see here, I'm just going to zoom in. So we have this first frame, and we're like, this is not exactly what we want. This is kind of directionally like what we care about, but we want to add a window here. We want her to have baggy pants, curly hair, change the bust. So that allows you to also specify visually where those changes might be happening, which is very hard, obviously, if you're using this through text. And
Looks like you don't have to be super exact either. Like, I noticed the add window drawing is just just like that area somewhere
yeah,
Yeah.
there.
exactly,
Yeah.
somewhere there. So you can be as specific and or as loose as you want. And obviously, it's still hit or miss, right? There's some cases, obviously, where the model might
Yeah.
not pick up on everything. But what that shows you is the
Yeah.
model actually is able to understand what's within the image and understand what you've written down, which is like add window, white baggy pants. None of this is in the prompt. It's all in the context that you're passing visually. And so then when the model deploys the changes, what's super cool is you see, as I said, it's a simulator. So you see that the bus going through behind the building, because there's two windows in this particular case. This is why I love this example is it actually figures out,
Wow.
well, if that's happening, then, these other things should be happening. And so
That
that's
is so
cool.
cool.
I did not realize it was going to happen during the video. I thought it was just going to generate with your changes.
No, that's right. So
That's
it's kind of
cool.
almost, it applies the changes and you can see them being applied. And then what you could do is you could reuse that, you could take any frame and then just use that as a starting point if you wanted to or something else. But it's kind of, yeah, the fact
That
that
is
you can
so
see the
cool.
bus throughout the building is always kind of for me a delightful moment where you're like, oh, it's really trying to understand the physics of the scene.
It's almost what I was gonna say is it's almost like a new way of storyboarding where you're like drawing the storyboard, but with an actual video.
I think that's right. And so the idea for us is try to figure out like what are the different ways you'd want to input and interact with the models. A lot of interaction also and back and forth between like the still images and the video. And the reason is it's easier sometimes to operate at the image level, to take your time, to annotate, and then sometimes you want to animate. So in the future, obviously, you'll figure out you'll have things like video references if you want more motion and controlling things that are have a temporal effect to them. But really, it's being able for you to being able to jump between all these different modes that matter to you as a creative is kind of what we're looking for. And so in that
Yeah.
vein, one thing we've been working on quite a bit is also like with the Google DeepMind team is multiple references. And so in this case, let's say I want this is my character, or maybe I'm trying to make an ad reel, this is my brand logo. So I picked something fairly complicated that I generated on purpose here, but like you have flowers, a capybara, whatever. um you can
Yeah.
say the woman is wearing a black leather jacket with the pattern in the back, and she turns around, and this is what you get out of it, which shows you how very quickly you're able to ideate on an idea. And so what we are seeing people do, particularly in the more creative professional space, is like it might not be exactly the perfect thing you wanted. Hopefully over time we allow you to get there. But for quick ideation and alignment, now you have all of these people who are like, I can do a previs of whatever thing we're trying to achieve in like a few, a minute, an hour, whatever, with a few people, we can align and then we can go into the detail. Um, so really many, many ways to input the model and many, many ways to kind of like give inputs. Um,
Are you going to
That's
add, or
wild.
do you already have a feature where you can talk your prompt? So like speech to I guess I could do it with Whisper Flow or something like that. But what do you recommend for that?
No, you're right. I mean, right now we don't have kind of like a little mic button here, but it's been interesting to
Yeah.
see how many people have been asking for it. I think as the models get a little faster and latency gets a little smaller, I think that'll become very interesting because then you pop this up in Bing in your screen
Yeah.
and then you iterate on the output conversationally until you're happy. A lot of
Yeah.
people have been asking.
Yeah, I would much rather as a person who's, been a writer for years, who's done a number of creative endeavors, I can very much see why the ability to just sit back and talk out loud about what you want would be more conducive to creativity than leaning over on a keyboard, you know?
It depends. Screenwriters might quibble with that, but that's why
They might,
that's why you need
they might.
the different modalities for everyone's skill set, right? Like a storyboard artist would want to draw, a director would want to
Yeah,
talk it out, you know, like,
that's right,
cinematographer
that's
would want
right.
to shoot it, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and over time, what I'm hoping is we turn this is to basically more of like it should feel almost like an assistant director kind of persona almost where like you like wherever you are, it should meet you there. It's like, hey, you want to brainstorm about the idea and just kind of poke at your script. Maybe we can do that. Or you're trying to have this output and you want to refine. Okay, let's try. We give you a version and then you can say, no, no, this is wrong. Change it here. It's all about this, I would say, iterative process. Again, this is why we went with the flow name is how do we get closer working with creative to understand how they operate and how we can bring that up. Um, and speaking of iteration, this is maybe kind of like along those lines of keeping improving the capabilities. Um, Here I generated a clip where I have this leopard, I guess, walking through a field of flowers. We've introduced a lot of different ways for you to start kind of like meddling with the video itself. So inserting, removing, changing the camera angle
Camera
after the fact.
position.
Yes.
Ooh,
So obviously, the more I'll show you insertion first, and then we can dig into, for example, camera changes. What's super interesting here is again because they're little simulators, if or maybe that's the mental model I encourage folks to think about is if you insert something, the model will say, well, okay, lighting is like this, motion is like this is how things should behave. Um, Here, just for the sake of, again, speed, I'm showing you an example I generated earlier, but maybe I can insert, if you remember the motion, a Labrador. Here, I just didn't specify even where it was, but I just said, Labrador pops up, and the model decided that the Labrador would be in the back. Or you can also specify um, um, where it should be. So for
wow.
example, let's take this one. I'm just going to delete the previous prompt. And, you can marquee select maybe this area and you can say a cat in a shining or shiny metal armor is riding the leopard, for example. Hopefully I didn't make any
I love
typos.
it.
I love it.
Um,
Yeah,
and so
that's right up our street.
it's generating right now. We can wait. We'll see that particular version in a second. But I did a few with like. So this is what my first attempt looked like last time. You have kind of
That's
like
cute.
cats
What
in
a
the little
cute kitten.
triangle. But you see, it's bouncing with the leopard. It tries to keep the other elements constant. The other part, which I don't know if I have an example here, but if you were introducing kind of like a metal orb in the scene, you would see the reflection on the orb, etc. So really, it feels like almost like a little simulator in a way. Um, you can
I
insert a
love it.
parrot, etc. Um, while this is generating, I was going to poke at the image tab, but first maybe you have some questions.
I did have one that just came up. Let's say I'm a filmmaker and I've already went out and shot some elements, right? Uh, what could I upload one of my video clips and have it edit it for me, like take stuff out and
Or continue it
yeah.
on.
Yeah. So right now in the Flow tool, we don't support video upload just yet. We support it through the
Okay.
API, I believe. So you're able to go ahead. But
Okay.
eventually we will get there. Oh, there you go. You have our cat with like a much bigger armor in this case.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That cat looks like
He looks like serious
Yeah,
ready to
business.
but you
go to
can
the
see actually the
gladiator
reflection.
arena.
Yeah. And you can see more of the reflections of the scenery. So it's trying to imagine what's on the other side of the camera to some extent. Um,
Yeah.
what I was going to say is, so we don't have video upload yet, but eventually we will. I think we have it right now
Yeah.
through the API in Vertex and Cloud for people who want to fiddle with it. Um,
Cool.
but the idea is you should be able to bring your assets. I think this world where you're fully in the generative space, like basically the generative and non-generative, it's just a tool. Those two things should blend. You should be
Yeah.
able to bring your, images. You should be able to bring your videos. And then when you need to generate something, you should generate. And probably you're going to use references, which are also anchored in your actual work. So in this case, we
Yeah.
inserted a random cat, but maybe I have the reference of the cat, or I have the reference of the armor, and we put it
Maybe it's your own cat.
exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe it's your own cat, maybe it's yourself. You see what I mean? Like, I think
Yeah.
that
If I'm gonna ride a leopard, I want a suit of armor too, to be fair.
um,
Oh, I was gonna say, what did you want to show us on the image tab as well?
oh yes. So we support both a video and image, and we're going to make it more and more seamless to jump back and forth. So right now it's two tabs. Eventually it might be just like one big canvas, and you can kind of iterate at in any of these modalities. But the reason why image is very interesting to me, because the models I would say are ahead of the video models. I'm going to explain what that means in a second, but you'll see kind of where they're going. You'll see the same themes, but just like pushed to the extreme, I would say, in the image land. And then two, because like there's this big thing of like latency. A lot of people really like to control like the frames. It's like this is where it starts, this is where it goes. I want to storyboard and then I want to animate. Um, so we really want to provide that flexibility to go back and forth. Um, so here are a couple of like fun examples. First, obviously, I use myself in there, so I'll just
As a pirate, I'm on board.
yeah.
I support this.
So here, for example, and this is with our latest image model, which Nano Banana, in this case is Nano Banana Pro, which released a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Here, I put a picture of myself, and I said, I want this person, and I want 6 poses on a 16:9 frame, and you can see how it's able to basically just generate my likeness in the 16:9 frame. I think we just added 2K and 4K upscaling. Resolution matters a lot, obviously, for creatives. Um,
Totally.
and, once I have this frame now of me in multiple poses, I can actually ask, very interesting, like say, hey, come up with, costumes, or here's a reference of this jacket that I want to be able to wear. And what I'll call out here is with the image models, you're seeing this evolution where we're moving from just generating an image, right? You just ask for something, you prompt directly the generation side to you're actually talking to Gemini. And so Gemini does the understanding, the reasoning. If you tell it like it's, transform this image into the 1970s, it's going to figure out all the elements of the image that should be updated, and then it's going to generate for you. So you don't have to talk to the generative side. You talk already to this, intelligent counterpart who's able to parse this or to take initiative. In this case, I just needed a bunch of costumes. It did it. And then because it has a lot of good visual understanding, so let's say I like this pirate here, so this is me as a pirate, I guess. I can say something.
So many great costumes in
I
there.
know, right? Yes, this is sadly my Halloween costume game was not up to what I'm showing here. Um, but you can say things of like, cool, take this reference and now extract the pirate, and he's standing, in the Tokyo subway station. So now this is me, on the Tokyo subway station. And
That
you
was
can go even
awesome.
further, which is because again, it's powered by understanding, reasoning, generative is all together now in Gemini. What that means is you can say things like, go zoom on the shoe and give me a few angles, of like the shoe, and you see it respects the scenes, the angles. You can see kind of like the lever, the texture. So it's consistent from all angles. Consistency has been this really, really hard piece.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, the buckles are in the right
the buckles,
place, the seam.
exactly. The buckles are in the right place. You can do, people have been playing with things like they use a portrait aspect ratio and they say, here's my starting frame. Show me the frames that come before and after. Or show me this
Ooh.
character from multiple angles. And because you're generating these and at the same time, you have like full consistency between the different angles. Um, and so what I would say is, image is kind of ahead in terms of like how powerful of these controls are coming together once you have, understanding, reasoning, and generative.
Right.
And as you can
Yeah.
tell, they're little simulators. For the people who are very advanced, you can ask for things like a depth map, and it's like, sure, I understand what that is. I'll just give you a depth map. And the final thing I'd
Oh,
say
wow.
is basically what's super interesting with these models is like they should meet you where you are. So in a way, if you're very advanced and you know to ask for this, the model will take a stab at it, or Flow will take a stab at it. But if you're like my daughter taking this tool, she's like, I just want to, a money on a unicorn. And it's not that different from an interaction perspective. It's almost like the depth of the tool gets hidden because now you have this layer of intelligence that can parse the ask. And so that's really exciting for me. I
Yeah.
think it's just a new paradigm.
So it's hearing what you say and then thinking, "Okay, that means I need to grab this tool, and I need to grab this tool, and that's what I," or whatever the, maybe not tools, but specifically, like, "Here are the techniques I'm going to use
Absolutely.
to make that happen."
Absolutely. And so
Okay.
you'll have, if you think of Gemini as, powering all of this behind the hood, exactly, Gemini can tell tools. So if you're saying, I need the reference of that picture of that video, eventually that's where it'll be able to just go and fetch, the information to be
Yeah.
accurate, in the same way that, you would ask it to go to search for information.
I have a
I look
question for
forward to
you.
that.
That
Yes.
red dot at the top there, what happens if I press that? Does that turn it into a video or?
Oh, so when I
Oh,
It's
color.
like I see a red button.
What would I do? I guess I would
good
go back to
feedback.
the video side and I would take it.
It's good feedback. We should probably change the default color of this. So when you click on an image, it pops up this edit view. So if I wanted, for example, to iterate on this image and I want to say, I don't know, maybe change the camera angle, or I wanted to doodle on it, so I wouldn't, I want to add some text here. This is just the color, yeah. So when you click on an image, you get into the image editing view. When you click on a video, you go to the video editing view.
Got it, got it.
Wow.
So I guess if I wanted to create a storyboard or even lay out all my clips on a timeline, does Flow have a feature for that? Guess for storyboard, I could take it to Mixboard, for example.
Yeah,
But yeah, what's
yeah.
your
So
what's your
in the current version, we have what we call a scene builder, it started from video. So right now it's video centric, but we're going to update it
uh
to make sure it supports both images and video. So for
Okay.
example, if you take this video, I can say add to my scene. I can switch to the scene builder, and now it's going to lay down in a few seconds on this timeline. I had this other clip that I'll just delete. Um, and now what you can do is you can say, maybe I'll play it for a second. Oh, done. Here we go. Now what you can do is you can start trimming, you can add other clips, but you can do interesting things, which is I can also do things like extend. So for example, let's say the
Mm.
clip ends up mid-action, 8 seconds, only goes to so far. So I can extend the clip while keeping the previous frames as a reference for the model. So you could say,
So we might not have to, watch AI videos that are only in 8-second clips anymore?
no, that's right. Yeah.
That's what I nerd out and like to watch, like, AI films on YouTube at night once in a while, and it's funny because, like, the early ones, there's very much like 3 seconds, 3 seconds, 3
they're
seconds,
movie
and then it's
trailers?
5,
Yeah.
5, 5.
That's right. And actually that's a fantastic point. So you can extend the clip. So maybe they continue walking through the field, and it will generate some options.
Maybe like a rival animal, like an armored dog riding an elephant arrives.
Sure. Yeah, we could do that too. Like an elephant answers the scenes, or like they stumble upon an
Yeah,
elephant.
yeah.
Stumble upon an elephant. We'll see what happens. Um, but oh, maybe
Uh-oh,
there you go, a little bug. I'll investigate that one.
it
We
happens.
we can cut that
But I
out
was
if you
going to
want.
say this, the consistency piece is exactly right. Is because you want to do multi-clip, this is why people use imagery, because consistency in imagery is at a much higher level right now than I would say video. And so they
Mm,
love getting, what people do is they'll get the consistency at the yeah, some things up. They love to get the consistency at the frame level, and then they'll use these for the different shots. So, different angle and start there, or
Oh,
like
yeah.
condition the first and last frame. So what you can do in
Yeah.
any clip, by the way, is you can extract, maybe, I'll go here. Maybe that's the frame I want. I can use that as an asset. It will bring it to
I
my
like that.
ingredients drawer, and now I can keep editing that image or create a new shot from it. So now I can say maybe, cool, this is great. Um, show me this scene from above, right? And so now it's going to generate
Yeah.
from above, and I could just start from there again. So you can go back and forth between image, video, animation, um, and
I'm
that's how.
thinking about that. Yeah, from my experience working on sets, you have a shot list typically, right? The director and the DP.
Yeah.
So you could generate, according to your shot list, all the different angles, and then you can pick the angle that you like the best. Oh, that's cool. Look at that.
So now I could.
I keep picturing him running toward the camera.
Let's do it. Say running
Let's do it.
towards the camera. Um, And so now what you could do is you could use this as a first frame, you could use the other one as a last frame, for example, and you can think of like a transition of like maybe it's a drone camera shot that goes around. Um, so basically, image I think is ahead in terms of like how controllable and how consistent it is, and also the latency aspect. And when you start pairing it with video, it's very powerful. Okay, so there you go. I think you kind of switch
Yeah.
Yeah.
sides maybe to some extent compared to the previous ones who might want to regenerate that. Um, but this is how you go.
But
You
that's
go.
still like, yeah, that still is
Yeah.
exactly what he asked for. He asked for,
Yeah.
they're running towards the camera.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So this is, yeah, I would say this is this exciting space, and yeah, we're excited to just make flow much more controllable. Again, molding clay, figure out how you navigate between all of these different types of inputs. Obviously, multi-clip is going to become very, very important next year as we get, to
Yeah.
longer
Yes.
form. But again, iteration, molding clay, and like the different inputs is really key for us. So we're excited to keep working with creatives.
Tomas, do you see a time where we're able to get to clips in, minutes in duration, like a film scene?
Yeah, so the across models, so here you can keep extending 8 seconds, 8 seconds, 8 seconds. I think you can see there's other models
Yeah.
who will also generate like 10 or 12 seconds already at once, maybe more. So we can generate more and more. I think the question I will have is more, what's the level of controllability? So is it feasible or is it going to be feasible? Yes. We'll be able to generate, yeah,
Yeah.
longer form clips. How useful it is and how do you iterate on top, I think becomes the question. If you look at most shots in most movies or anything is really like a few seconds at most. And so I think we're dealing
Yeah.
with like, cool, what's the right level? Like we should probably give you some control over the length, right? Maybe you actually want 2 seconds and really be
Yeah.
very precise. 1 minute, it becomes, what do you feed into it? Do you feed multiple scenes? Do you have
A
an idea?
script?
You
Yeah.
just want to get a first draft. It will start probably deviating from our vision a bit more, but maybe
Right.
that's useful for ideation. So I think it's that trade-off.
Yeah.
But capabilities wise, yes.
I think about it in the context of in film, there's sort of this running competition to try and have the longest oneer, right? The longest one shot where it's
Oh,
you're trying to have a whole movie that's one shot. But I think in order to do that with AI, you would almost have to be able to pause the shot at any point. I almost think it'd be better to do it with a world model where you could like almost go around, like you generate this clip and then you
Yeah.
could like go all around them and be like, okay, now like let's have the camera go up here and then okay, play and have it keep going. Do you get what I'm saying?
Where the film process began with the creation of the universe within the film.
Right. Exactly.
I love that because I
Ooh.
think I can actually, maybe I can give you a quick preview of like, or a view of the Genie stuff, which I think is also what you're talking about, at least our Google instantiation of it. But I
Yeah.
think for me, if I think of like what the future looks like, is you could create a world in a way, right? You specify the world and then you shoot in it. And so,
Yeah.
the ability to pause time, go around, it remembers what's happened.
Yep.
There's kind of a glimpse of that if you look at the Genie model, which is a different model than the one you have in here. But, if I kind of show you this one.
It's so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you probably saw that. World memory even carries over into your app. Sorry, I'm just going to mute it.
Yeah.
What's really cool in this one is so it's more real time, which again, real time has its advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, it's like how do you use pause to
Yeah.
control. But what's really cool is it has a really long context understanding. And so if you turn back around, it has state. So if you want to do location scouting, for example, you're creating this location, this world, you can keep navigating in it. You can take another shot for the beginning of it. You can modify what's in it. And so I think that back and forth between generating, then re-navigating within what you've generated, changing things, going back in time. Like I think this is to me, this is all the super exciting stuff that you
Yeah.
couldn't do today. You know, there's a lot of things that we're still in this incremental phase where like it feels like just like doing some of the things you could already do just differently. But I
Right.
think we're going to start seeing this year a lot of stuff of like, I want to change this and I will propagate this change across the entire movie. The jacket is different. Boom, do it. Like one day before
Yeah.
Wow.
releasing the thing. Or like, I need a location. This is the entire definition of my location. I'm going to navigate in it. I'm going to change this. It's a bus here. It's a car here. And now I can use this as the reference to reshoot the scenes or have the scene being kind of regenerated using that new reference. I think it just the toolkit is going to expand quite quickly this year and
Yeah.
hopefully bridge just new
I think
things.
that will open up a lot of
Yeah.
people's minds to using this as a creative tool too. Maybe some people who are more skeptical of AI, because then you have the more control than you had before, which is awesome.
Something that's unique about AI to me and tools like, well, Flow and plenty of other tools for that matter, is that when you look at them, we already know what their future looks like. We know there will be longer videos. We know they will be more manipulative. We know there will be audio controls that can be done and things like that. It's just when does it get here? And it's really neat that we can see those things ahead of time, like um, and know that people are working on that right now.
Yeah.
you know.
A- And I think what's crazy is it's rare, at least in my field or in tech in general, like outside of AI, it was rare that you could be like, yeah, it's going to go this way and this will probably happen and this will also probably happen. And it's just a matter of time. And, is it 6 months, a year, 2 years? It's kind of crazy that we're able to make these statements fairly confidently, like, sure, I think at some point I should be able to navigate in the video and we'll imagine the world as I want,
Surely by
right?
Q2.
And,
Yeah.
and
or
it's funny
something.
that we're able to kind of like, we've all become fairly comfortable kind of making these statements, but when you think about it, it's kind of
Yeah.
crazy. Um,
Yeah.
It's very much predicting the future, and, it's changed even how I think people build. I think you've got to do whether it's software, whether it's projects like this, you've always gotta be working toward what's available at the end goal of your project, and you probably know what some of those things are.
Right.
And, the worst case, you get there early, but,
How do you handle
it's
that?
really fascinating.
Yeah, how do you handle that? So I guess the last question before we go, as a leading the product development of this, how do you handle this knowing that, the famous line, "Oh, this is the worst it'll ever be," or whatever. You know that the models are gonna get better. So are you constantly like projecting into the future what you think the capability will be in order to design the features? How do you design?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's actually we've changed quite a bit how we operate. I think even just in doing product in this space, the way I think about it, or with the teams, the way we've kind of worked about it is we try to predict. We have convictions of where the future is heading. And these are like, for example, a year and a half ago, it was like it's gonna be show and tell. Just like I don't want to hear about prompts. I'm just tired of like seeing people just do these things. Like they're like over optimizing by prompting just because there's no better alternative. Like okay, so you have this conviction.
Yeah.
Then you build kind of like the versions you build almost for that future, even though the models don't support it really well yet, so it's a little clunky. A good example, you
Yeah.
mentioned Whisk, for example. So for people who haven't
Mhm.
used Whisk, Whisk is a tool where our idea it was a premise for show and tells. Like you put subject, scene, style as images, and we'll take that as a reference to generate an image. But we didn't have good consistency models. So what was happening is we asked Gemini to actually describe the prompt in the early stages, and then it will rewrite the prompt for you just based on text descriptions. The moment we introduced the proper models that could actually do consistency pixel wise, you saw just adoption just go like straight up, just like immediately. And so the reason I'm mentioning it is like you have that conviction, so you know there's going to be a window. You build for that window, and then you get an early sense from like the early adopters that this is kind of right in terms of what people want. And then the modern moment the capabilities hit, you have something that's ready on the market to kind of just like ride that wave. It's kind of like, you see what I mean? It's
Yeah.
you prepare for those windows, you build ahead of time. It's not different from what a lot of folks have done in traditional product developments, but the windows are much shorter and they happen much faster. And the future is a little bit, it's hard to predict 6 months to a year down
Yeah.
the road, maybe. So that's the challenge.
Are you willing to? Where do you while we're here, where do you see the tool a year from now?
Yeah, I think my dream for Flow in particular is I think it becomes your assistant director, where it really feels that you're just like talking to like some, intelligent counterpart that will, and again, it's not push button, it will just do passes at whatever you're asking and you're able to iterate. So you could do everything by yourself if you wanted to. We're just saying, hey, cool, we took a stab. What do you think? And then we iterate on it. Um, and then I think from the model perspective, I'm hoping it's more and more to like you build a world, you shoot in it, at least for something like Flow, right? Which is, you can already see that that's kind of what this is telling you is like you're showing the characters that are in it, you're showing what a scene should look like. You're world building in a way. And the question is more like, what is the right model slash user interaction patterns to really allow for that? Larger context windows, things like that behind the scenes will happen.
Wow. So cool. Thank you so much for showing this to us.
No, my pleasure.
Yes.
Anytime.
So, Tomas, where can people go to try Flow?
Yes, so they can go to flow.google. Very easy. I will lead you to this page, and that'll be hopefully your entry point into this experience.
What a gorgeous page too. I
Yeah,
said
props
that
to
Yeah.
when we
the
got on, I know, but every time I see it, I'm like, dang, that's good looking web design.
yeah, we have a team called the Creative Lab. They've been absolutely fantastic. Really to kind of channel like the creative power of these tools, I think. Thank you.
That's
Awesome. Really appreciate you joining, Tomas. It was great to meet you, man.
Great to meet you too. Yeah, until next time.
all right. So, today we are joined by Megan Lee, Senior Product Manager at Google Labs, who's leading Opal, Google's no code AI app builder that's democratizing AI development by letting anyone create functional mini apps using just natural language. Megan, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Megan, I wanted to ask, you're leading Opal. What was the original, I guess, like impetus or problem that you were trying to solve with creating Opal?
Yeah, that's a great question. Opal actually started a while back, and it didn't start as an original product idea. It actually started with this amazing group of engineers who's still working on Opal now, who were thinking through ways to help people actually chain together multiple AI prompts and calls to different models. So, in their exploration, again, this was super early days, they started thinking through maybe this would be an open source library, maybe this would be targeted towards developers, and they kind of started to build out what became a really robust open source framework for thinking about chaining AI multiple calls together. But as they kind of continued to build, things moved super quickly. And we saw that there were so many tools and different libraries available for developers to do similar things, to be able to create and code these really complex user workflows with AI, but that there kind of wasn't really anything here for folks in between. So, how it evolved is that we went from looking at this developer library, I think as a team, we were kind of trying to figure out as the market moved where this might go. And we were trying to think, what might this look like as instead of just like a standalone library, an actual product? How might we make this something that can help more people build with AI, not just developers, since we saw so many different solutions in the space? And so, where it started to evolve was kind of first saying, all right, what might it look like to have this kind of front end experience? Let's build out this kind of visual editor to help make it easier to think through, instead of just building blocks of code, what would it look like to actually have building blocks that explain what's happening with the code underneath it? And we started to build up things like, okay, maybe there's a step where we talk about generation, and that's like how you call a specific AI model. But maybe we also start to have different types of tools that we visualize and kind of abstract away what's happening underneath. And from there, I think we're starting to get closer and closer to, okay, it feels like there might be a product here, but who might this be for? And I think it's an interesting kind of time in AI where traditionally you think of a very specific problem and then you build a solve for that. And I think with AI, because it's moved so quickly, it's kind of almost like reverse in a way where we had the technology to say, hey, it's really cool to chain together multiple AI calls, see people create custom workflows. But how do we actually find the right set of users who maybe don't have access to this capability, or it's not so easy to kind of tap into that today? And so from there, I think the biggest unlock, in addition to having that visual editor, was when we started working on this kind of idea of a planning agent, of saying, what if we had a way to translate natural language into a completely built AI workflow? that already hooked up to certain model calls that could use the best of Google's models and also could access things like tools like web search all in one place. And so I think that kind of became the unlock moment where once we had that ability to let someone enter in a natural language, immediately map out that workflow. And again, it's all built off of that original library of open source code. We started to say, okay, actually feels like this might be interesting now. And in a way, it also feels like it's really different than what we originally set out to do, right? Build more tools for developers. Instead, we're saying, what if maybe this allows people who don't know how to code or less technical users to actually build something cool and actually useful? And so that's the thesis when we put this out there about 5 months ago now. But it's kind of a long, winding journey to how we landed on Opal.
I'm really excited about Opal, and the reason is because, well, kind of exactly what you said in terms of making it possible for people who are maybe let's say not traditional engineers to create basically essentially agents, right? That's basically what we're doing here
Yeah.
is we're creating an ability. So me, without having to get into an IDE or a command line interface, which is even scarier, to actually be able to build an agent. And I think one of the recent things that was just announced is that Opal is actually coming to Gemini. Is that correct?
Yeah, we just launched that a few days ago, so it's been a very crazy season for the team. But we're super
That's awesome.
excited because I think Gemini represents so many users out there who are learning to use AI and today maybe primarily use chat. So we were really
Right.
excited to bring Opal to that type of experience.
That's awesome. So I'm wondering if we could get into it and check it out. My first question is how would I, if I'm in Gemini, be able to get to Opal and start building with it?
So when you actually land in Gemini, if you look at this side panel, you can actually see Gems page. So the
Hmm.
reason we brought Opal into the Gems experience is if we scroll to the bottom, the classic gems are still here. But the thinking is that Gems, for those who aren't familiar, is more of this kind of like chatbot Gemini experience, but with a specific instruction so that you can have models behave a certain way. And in a way, it really all comes down to how do you customize AI? How do you customize Gemini for your specific needs? And we felt like Opal was an extension of that vision. But rather than just having AI talk to you differently or have like a specific custom version of Gemini chat with you differently, we wanted to think about what it might look like to have Gemini act differently. And that's where we felt like Opal really fit within that mission. So when we were looking for a place to kind of bring Opal into that larger Gemini app family, Gems felt like a really natural place to do that. And we really debated around how, kind of what to call it, how to think about branding. And I think at the end of the day, what we wanted to do was just to move really quickly and bring it some way into the product and let people try it and learn from that experience. And so that's
That's
how we
awesome.
landed here. Yeah, with gems from Google Labs. But if you, and I'll actually show you real quick, if we just open up one of these gems or labs gems, if you will, this isn't an Opal. The only difference here is that because we knew that certain Gemini app users likely aren't as familiar with Opal, we didn't want to drop them right into that visual editor experience because even though
Mm,
we wanted to build something kind of simpler, more catered to folks who don't necessarily have as a traditional developer background, to your point, we wanted to kind of introduce potentially and play around with an even lighter version of Opal for these types of users. And that's where we
cool.
came up with what we like to call our tinkerer user experience, where these are maybe folks who are still trying to understand what does it even mean to build a custom AI workflow or build a custom AI mini app. And so here you can see it's a little bit simpler than what you might even see in Opal. And I'll actually show
Mm,
you really quickly. Let's assume, and actually one more thing I'll show you, is you can also start from natural language. So if
that's
you're
awesome.
familiar with Opal, yeah, that's a great starting point, right? An app that, and you can actually type something up. Um, let's actually try something here. That's a prompt. This is a little app idea. Here you can see your original prompt, but we're going to try to build an app that takes a photo of my fridge with ingredients and creates recipes using those. This is a
Corey
personal
needs
pain.
this.
Yeah, it's a
He-
personal pain point, right?
yeah, yeah. He's
So
always
that's
talking about how he needs this. He's gonna be jealous. He wasn't here.
Yeah, because there's always things that are expiring in your fridge, and you need to make the most of it. And that's kind of where we came up with this one was just how do we make it easier to not let so much food go to waste? And it's not
Yeah.
that you don't always have time to go through everything. So the idea here is we entered in that natural language prompt and kind of what I
Uh,
talked about before of automatically translating that user intent. And what we've done is just broke it down into steps here. And so the first
yeah.
step, if you open this up, all right, question to user. So this means when I go through the app, what am I actually seeing? What are you asking me to do? And then the next step, if we look here, this is a prompt summary. So this must be essentially a step that includes an AI model, but we've kind of abstracted that away a little bit in this kind of lighter tinker review. And then we keep going, and here you can see the second step. Now it's actually generating images for that experience. And then finally, it's putting it all together into this web page. So we can actually give it a try. And this is kind of the app preview space. Upload a photo of your fridge. I'll go ahead and do that. All right.
I could
And
have
now
used
it's
this 3
running.
days ago. We just got rid of a bunch of expired food.
Yeah, you could have come up with really creative recipes, or Gemini could have done it for you.
Totally.
And for those who aren't familiar, this is really similar to the actual Opal experience, except it's a little bit lighter. So while it's doing that, what I might also do is open up the advanced editor so you can see what
Ooh.
this app looks like inside of Opal.
Oh
So we
yeah.
started that journey in Gemini, but if you clicked that open in advanced editor, you can actually open up the Opal experience for even more control. So that's kind of the thinking was how do we make this a seamless experience for people to start either in Opal if they have a very complex use case or they're very familiar with the kind of visual editor and then be able
Vision.
to use those apps in Gemini. Or if you want to start from kind of the light view in Gemini, you can still go deeper and end up in this visual editor experience. All right, so I opened it up there. And again, we can run this here, but it takes a little bit of time. So instead of rerunning it, I'm just going to show you what this looks like. So I don't know if
Awesome.
you got a glimpse of my fridge earlier, but here there's tuna in there. There were some veggies that were about to expire. There was some fruit. And I think there was some deli meat as well. So you can see different types of
Perfect.
recipes, and it's all put together in one place.
That
Yeah.
is so cool. That's awesome. And I love the transition. That is genius from a product perspective where you're working with something that is familiar to people who've used gems, and then you're slowly onboarding them onto this less familiar user experience with Opal. That's great.
Yeah. Thanks. So should we start from the beginning? Should we walk through a workflow in Opal itself?
Let's do it.
So one use case that I'd like to talk through, and I'll open it up here. And we won't actually go ahead and create this. I'll just maybe intro it a little bit. So
Sure.
this Opal I really love because it started as this idea where I don't know if you remember, maybe a few months ago, there were these really fun AI created ads where people were making kind of like branded ads, and you start with this box and you're not quite sure what's happening, and it starts to rumble, and then it pops open, and then all of this brands kind of products pop open, and it's this really fun, delightful short clip. And so it started there where I was like, what would it look like to recreate this? And then I saw people kind
Mm,
of circulating the prompt to generate these types of video ads. And
perfect.
then I decided, all right, let's try it for my friend's brand. She just started an interior design company in New York, and I wanted to see what it would look like with hers. Because when I tried this kind of national consumer brands, it worked super well out of the box, just one prompt. But when I tried it, I realized that the models had no idea what her indie brand was, and it had
Mm,
hallucinated a completely different type of product. And so I was thinking, this seems like a really good use case for Opal, where I could actually try to customize and prod the models a little, give them a little bit more context to work with to make sure they can actually generate a video that feels true to my friend's brand. So I made this Opal, which I call Exploding Box Video Ads. But the idea, and I'll walk you through kind of what this looks like, is it starts by asking the brand name. And then the next step is that it assumes that maybe this brand isn't a well known, everybody knows this brand yet. Maybe it's a newer brand, maybe it's a smaller business. So, first thing it does is search the web. So, it accesses this tool. And if you're in Opal, you can look at what tools are available by just clicking the at sign. So, here,
mm,
there's a bunch of other things you could pull in, like a maps listing, getting a specific web page, getting the weather. But for this use case, I think searching the web is a good place to start. And then
that's awesome.
here you can also edit the prompt. But you can see here we're taking in that user input of the brand name, coming up with the business name, and then continuing on. And here, as we're kind of going through this example, I'll just talk you through some of the steps in Opal because I know sometimes it's hard to grok exactly what's happening when you enter this visual editor space. It can look really complex. But
Right.
these are actually just pretty simple prompts. If you break them up separately, each one's just a step that does something slightly different.
Right.
And so here, this next step essentially it mimics the ad format that previously I talked about, that prompt circulating. So here you can see kind of detailed prompts that it generates, and now it's asking the product, great, go ahead and create something similar to this.
Could I ask a question? Is that the output requirements right there under metadata? It's saying like create it and put it in this format.
So this is actually just generating the prompt.
Oh,
So
okay.
one thing that Opal often does, especially if you use natural language to start, is it breaks up everything into smaller steps. And the
Right.
reason it does this is it just gives you a lot more control. So, one other use case that I really like to use Opal for is testing things. Like if I'm testing this prompt and I'm like, okay, I think I want the model to mimic this longer prompt. And sometimes you run it all the way through and you realize that it didn't quite get something right. It's really
Yeah.
easy to just come back and edit the prompt. So, maybe you can edit it manually here. In Opal, you can also use natural language by clicking this button that just edits
That's
this
awesome.
specific prompt. And then sometimes you want to edit something about the entire experience. And in that case, you would click here and say edit these steps. So you could, in a way, rewrite the entire workflow or make edits that impact multiple steps of your workflow.
This is great.
Yeah. And then this last step is the generation step. That's what you were asking for. So here it just references that generation from previously.
Right.
Um,
Got it.
and if you'd like, we can run this through.
Yeah,
But
let's
I
try it.
also, all right, let's give it a shot. So first, this is my friend's brand, and then I'm going to upload an example of the product. So this is an image of a candle holder that I want to be featured. And then as it's running, what I really like is this kind of visual experience where you can see where we are in the process. Because
Yeah.
the thing about chaining together multiple calls and different tools like searching the web is sometimes it can take a while. So it's nice to be able to track it here. And then the other thing I like to do while these mini apps are running is I go to this console tab, which you can think of as maybe like for a developer, you might think of this as the place you go to debug. But really what's
Mm.
happening is you're just understanding what's happening underneath the hood. So you can see that we're on this step. So let's try to get there, but you can see the interim results. So you can start to kind of see what's happening even before it all gets put together.
So you can click into each step and see the actual output of each step. That's great.
Yeah. So it kind of gives you some sense of things are happening, even if you're waiting here. Um, so yeah, you
Yeah,
can see the
that's
prompt template.
yep. A completed
And then
prompt. That's great.
now it's working on the video, which often takes the longest, but we also try to show you a progress indicator.
I like
Um,
that as well.
I
I
know
will
sometimes
say
it's tough.
I've used sorry to interrupt you, but I've
No.
used a lot of other no code kind of node based workflows like this, and this is by far the most intuitive, the most that like where it's abstracting away a lot of the other stuff that's perhaps intimidating to people like structured outputs and it's connecting API keys here and there and you see this like list of boxes you have to fill in and you get so intimidated. Here it's all prompt based seemingly and there you can ask questions about it at any step along the way, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, I love that there's, to your point, I love that you can think about it as asking questions, right? If you
Yeah.
want something to change, you can enter it as a change. And I think where we'd love to see this go is even more of that kind of natural back and forth. So I can definitely see chat also becoming a future part of the Opal experience. All
Mm.
right, it looks like our video is ready. So let's switch to the app tab, which just kind of makes it a little bit bigger. And then we can also full screen.
That is awesome. And would you say that this is accurate to the brand?
Yeah, and what I should have done is shown you what happens without this opal because the first time I did it, my friend's brand is Inner Child Shop, but it's very chic. As you can see here, it's kind of like
Yeah.
bohemian. It's got these nice textures. The first time I tried this as just a prompt, it thought it was a children's furniture brand. So I got unicorns and it was so off-brand. And so it's really fun to see something like this where it feels so much more true. It's checked out her website with web search. The Opal workflow kind of is able to take in that product image. So I really wanted that kind of candlestick to be featured because I think it's a really fun, funky representation. So it's really nice
Yeah.
that that also is incorporated.
We're with the prompts, were you really specific, like make the candle in the middle of the room, or did it just kind of pick up that naturally?
That's a great question. What we did was, where is that prompt? The final
Yeah.
piece. And so here is where I edited it. And I said, the final piece, the yellow throw blanket. And so what we did in one of these prompts is just specify that this product being uploaded, which was that image of the candlestick, should be the final piece. And so that kind
Got
of
it.
replaces that last touch.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I love that you can get that granular with it.
Yeah. Should we walk through a different example too?
Sure, let's do it. Yeah. And perhaps we could maybe go a little bit deeper under the hood. Like if I'm someone who's doing this for the first time, what are the things that I need to prepare ahead of time? in order to do this well, or something of that nature.
Yeah. Would you like to start from just natural language? See the
Sure,
entire creation flow?
let's do it.
All right. Let's try. So here, for someone trying it for the first time, you'll enter into this page. And so far, I think we've seen a lot about natural language. So let's start there, and then I'll also walk you through, for power users, what it might look like to build this from scratch. But I'll talk you through it instead.
Cool,
So let's use
cool,
a different type of example. Here I have an app that takes a user-provided core idea as input, analyzes and expands on it to generate a main headline. And then from there, I'm having it just create a few different drafts of social posts. So I think of this as almost like a Kickstarter or a brainstormer, and it helps you just come up with one concept translated into different iterations of text and an image as well.
awesome.
And so here, while it's working, we can also talk through how to build this with specific steps here. So
Yeah, yeah. So
anytime, yeah, go
I
ahead.
see there's user input, generate output, and then add assets.
Yeah. All right. And now we have something to work off of, so we can zoom in a little bit. So user input is this yellow box. And so if I wanted to, I could literally enter my own user input and add it to this chain. So here we say
Mm,
enter your core idea or topic. And then here you could imagine if you wanted to add something else like enter in a second topic. You could manually hook this up to the next step as well, right? And so
hmm
what you do is just add a connection. But then the next step, which is trickier, is you actually need to go in and incorporate your second idea, right? Read the provided core idea carefully. Also consider the second core idea. And so you can see quickly that this becomes more manual if you're building it with these manual blocks. So the other
Right.
thing you can do at any point is use natural language to make that change. And here I'm just going to delete this one. And you can see here you might say, allow the user to enter a second core idea. So it's going to work right now. And what this natural language prompt essentially matches to that you adding a second user input we just looked at. But at any time, you can jump into specific steps and change them as well. All right. And while that's working, I'll just talk you through the rest of the steps.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
again, generate is just think of it as just an AI call, right? And I'll jump into one of these once this change is done. But you can actually do a bunch of different types of AI calls in Opal. One of the best parts, I think, is that you can do things like not just generate text, you can generate images, videos, as we saw, you can generate audio, music. All of Google's state of the art models are actually included here.
I actually have a question about that. Is it set up through your API, or how does it actually, how do you actually work with them back and forth?
Yeah, that's a great question. What's really nice is that you don't need to have an API key. You don't need to think about something like, how much quota do I have left? What's
Right.
really nice is all of this is done for you pretty manually. So we've hooked up all of these models for you to use, and there are some user limits. But for now, kind of we're releasing this in a way where we're trying to be responsible. There are some caps, but we also understand that people are still learning what to build. So we're pretty generous with what you can do here. And whether you're creating an Opal for someone else to use, or you're a user and someone else sent you their mini app to try, you have the same limits. So you don't have to think about paying for anyone else's usage. All Opal users are the same to us, and Google manages everything from hosting and deploying it to easy one click sharing, which we can also
Awesome.
here. Yeah, but you can see a bunch of different models here. We probably need to clean this up, but there's a lot of cool things you can try, including some of our agentic models like deep research, which is really useful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So this is the generate step, as I think we talked through earlier. This is an example of an image generation step. You can see Nano Banana and the latest Nano Banana Pro.
hmm
And then this output is really interesting too. So if you think about this block, most opals are some type of workflow, and then there's usually some last step at the end. And so oftentimes people create this web page, which just means putting it all together in one web page. You can see all of your content from previous steps, including images, any content you created. But the other thing we actually see a lot of users do is this save to Google Docs, slides, or sheets. So this is
Yeah,
one use case that's a little bit more like a workflow where you've done all these steps and then you dump it into a doc or a sheet or a slide so you can go and use it elsewhere.
that's cool. Do you have any plans at some point to connect it to, let's say like other tools outside of Google? Like if you want to publish something directly from Opal, for example.
Yeah, that's actually one of our top feature requests is people saying, "Can I embed my Opal in a website? Can I embed my Opal in a slide?" So definitely top of mind for us. We would love
Cool.
to do that. That's on the roadmap. The other big question we get is people asking, "How can I connect it to other sources, right? How can I connect it to
Mm.
Gmail? How can I connect it to third-party resources?" And that's also top of mind for us. So we are working on an MCP integration. We're starting with first parties, so we are thinking about in 2026, we're hoping it's easier to create custom Opal workflows that connect to your Gmail or your calendar as a starting point. We are also thinking through what it might look like to offer more connections within Opal, but still trying to maintain that simplicity where how do we allow you to do things like connect to a different data source without it feeling like that intense kind of intimidating IDE experience again?
Right, right. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And I understand why people request it because this is so intuitive. Like this is so much easier than the other tools. Like just conceptually you get it that you want to be able to do even more with it. So
Yeah.
compliments to the team.
Thanks. Yeah, it's definitely this kind of tension that we're always living through as we kind of think through more feature requests is oftentimes people are asking for more complexity. So they want kind of more advanced features. They want conditional logic. They want looping. And we want those things too. But it's this weird thing where with AI, I feel like it's the easy part is building it, the technology, right? Like we can absolutely support looping. But the harder part is thinking through how do we present something like looping to people so that it's easy to understand what that is, how to implement it, how do I edit that behavior, right? So if we think about looping as something where it's like, I want this agent to keep going back and asking questions to the user. I want the agent to continue, researching until it's done. But how do you represent it in this type of visual experience where it's not code? And that's an unsolved question that we're always still thinking through. So as we look at new features we're trying to build next year, that's kind of always the tension we're balancing is how do we make Opal more useful for people, more powerful, without making it so confusing and complex that we lose a lot of the users who really love Opal today.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like the easier you make it, the more people want to use it, and then the more that they want more complicated things on top of it because you've made it so easy to do this part where you're like, okay, now let's add other elements to it.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely some balance and some self-control we have to have because it's easy to want to race to add all the complexity,
Totally.
but then we don't want to lose sight of what makes Opal really special for us today.
Is there anything we haven't covered here that you can do in Opal or anything that you're like really, really excited about?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really fun, and I think also one way when we talk about customization that I find myself using Opal a lot with, is the ability to add an asset. So if we
Mm.
click add asset, you can upload a file. You could even do something like draw, which is really fun. So the other thing we're hoping to do next year is bring in more support for tablets and mobile. So you could imagine this being even more interesting if you could draw sketches and then upload it as part of your Opal. But
Oh,
any
yeah.
asset that you upload here can be referenced by the model. So if we take a step here, so this Opal is kind of a silly one, but I wanted to make it really easy to make just customized kind of pet comics. So I said,
Love
upload a
it.
photo of your pet. What's your pet's name? Maybe you can imagine adding a step where you can control what type of story is generated, but it creates a comic strip. And when I first did
Could
it,
we customize this for Ollie, our orange cat? I know the cat there is not orange, but perhaps we say make the cat orange and name him Ollie.
yeah, that's a great idea.
Representing this guy right here, our
Uh,
mascot.
so here, because we need to upload that, let me actually grab a photo of Ollie, and then we can replace it here.
Ooh, that's even better.
Yeah,
If you need one, I can send it your way.
I just took a quick screenshot, so let's see if that works. But the
Perfect.
idea here, and I'll show you this before we upload Ollie, is it says maintain the consistent art style and overall mood, take inspiration from, and then what I did earlier was at, and then select this photo.
I love that. I love the fact that you can just add things in the middle of the prompt. That's great.
Yeah, we try to make it
Super
easy
intuitive.
to know what you're looking for. All right, so now let's upload Ollie. So I'm going to delete this reference, and then I'm going to go ahead and add an asset.
I see you can also add YouTube videos, right? So
Yeah,
that
you
was an
can.
asset.
You can upload YouTube videos as a reference, kind of what we're doing here, or you can add it as a user input too. So there's a lot of use cases we've seen where people are saying, take this music video or take this song and then translate it into like a poem or plan an entire party around this specific song, which is fun too.
That is fun. That's cool.
All right,
People are so
let's see.
creative.
Yeah, I
I have never
that's
thought of
been
that.
That's honestly been one of the best parts of building Opal is hearing how people are using it. It's just ways that I would not have imagined myself. So it's really cool to take inspiration from that. All right. Take inspiration from, and now we have Ollie. All right, great. And then if I click away, you can see that an arrow actually automatically got added. Because this prompt references this asset, that just happens automatically without you needing to do anything here. All right, and let's see if we're lucky that we have limited quota of Nano Banana Pro, but let's see if that works.
Fair. You don't
Um,
want people to go too wild with that.
yeah, and we are trying to get more capacity, but as you can imagine, I think there's just a lot of demand right now for AI. So
Would you ever let people add API keys? I know we're trying to abstract away the horror of API keys, but if they wanted more output and Opal is like their favorite way to interact with AI, would you add that ability?
yeah, definitely. I think we would consider it. I don't know that we would absolutely do it. I think this is again a good example of the tension of simplicity and complexity is thinking through how do we best support kind of more complicated use cases without alienating the people who really find Opal special today.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that the reason we put it out there so early is because we want to understand like what are those killer use cases? Where are people like really getting the most out of Opal? And how do we make sure that the roadmap reflects what people actually need for that kind of primary use case? And I
Makes
think
perfect sense.
today, a lot of it is kind of more everyday use cases. It's people saying, I'm building this tool for my team and I don't have any coding ability, which is really cool. Or it's technical users saying, I'm a developer, but this is a really cool place for me to kind of sandbox and prototype workflows and partner with my non technical teammates to kind of iterate on that. That's actually one way that our team uses Opal as well.
Oh, yeah. Say more about that.
Yeah, and actually, I well, let's see if I can find one, but I'll talk you through it a little bit. There's a few different ways that our team actually uses Opal, but we use it quite frequently in our own internal workflows. One of them is this use case where if you see all these images that are generated automatically in the back of your Opal apps, when
Hmm.
we first launched this app, we just used this prompt and we tried to kind of vibe eval it a little bit, but the images weren't great. So we did not auto generate them. We actually had a generic kind of like pentagon icon, and then we said users have to go into the theme tab, which actually I will show you quickly, and generate the image themselves or kind of come up with different prompts to generate a good image because we just weren't confident in the prompt quality. Um, but what we did was we built an Opal to emulate essentially the experience of automatically creating an image. So we did. Uh, and maybe opening this up is helpful. I don't have the exact opal on hand, but we just said like, okay, here's the title of an opal, here's a description, and then maybe here's also a third step that allows users to enter a customized prompt. And then we
Mm,
just iterated on the image prompt that we used. And what was cool about this is previously it would have been like in the code, and then someone has to take the prompt from code, and then it's hard to actually live see how that prompt changes with all the various inputs. So someone like me wouldn't necessarily be able to help Eng. It would be a lot of back and forth just to get us to a good place. But with an opal, it was really cool because I'm like, okay, I built the opal, I took the prompt that you're using in the code, and now I can, as the PM, iterate a ton on what that prompt looks like until I'm happy with it. And I can test the edge cases like what if someone has no title, no description, and then enters a completely random prompt? What might
right.
that image generation look like? And be able to really test it and kind of do a lot more banging on that prompt until I was super happy with the quality. And we were able to get there pretty quickly because kind of we were able to work in parallel. And then once we were kind of perfecting that image prompt, we were confident enough to actually say, let's automatically generate these images. So now every opal you make automatically has that cover image because we're feeling a lot more confident about what comes out there.
That is so cool. I love that. You're using your own you're using your own supply. I don't know the right phrase. Yeah.
Yeah, where I'm like, it's very meta, but we love using Opal to build Opal. And I think
Yep.
another fun use case is we have this Opal that looks at our GitHub repo, and then it asks like, how many days are you looking at? Like in X previous days, what commits have happened? And so it allows me
Mm,
to actually go in, and of course, I know what's happening in the code, and like we chat about what people are updating, but sometimes there's things that you kind of forget about. It's like even if it's last week, right? It's like, oh, I forgot we fixed that paper cut. So it's been really cool to be able to use an Opal where in the last X days, I can see a summary of everything that's happened in the code. And then I also remixed that Opal and said, okay, now turn it into snippets with emojis. so that you can actually see, right? It's like in the last week we did, and then it's these like really nice short snippets that I can send on Discord to let our community know, hey, we fixed these things that you've been asking for. And it doesn't require as many steps in just coordination and communication and remembering everything that we did. And it's really, yeah, just a nice way to gut check. So now we just run the Opal, ping the team, and make sure we didn't hallucinate anything, do a quick verification. But for the most part, it's been a really nice way to expedite kind of closing that loop with our user base.
Very cool. Do we want to check on this Ollie comic real fast before we close out?
Yeah. I realized though that this Ollie Opal would require us to upload a photo of the cat instead of the reference because what it does is
Ah.
just mimic the style. So we
Oh, okay.
could
That's
run
fine.
it, but I don't think it'll do exactly what you're hoping it will do unless we
That's
change up
fine.
the workflow.
That's fine. We don't have to do it. Well, I did see there was some advanced settings there. Maybe for folks who are a little more tech savvy, what can you do with the advanced settings? Anything
Yeah.
interesting?
That's a really good question. So the way we think about advanced settings is just going one layer deeper. And so it's the whole idea of simplicity, but complexity on demand. So when we open up advanced settings, you'll see actually different types of features pop up here. So with the classic generate step, you'll see that you can add a system instruction. So this makes it
Hmm.
really easy to test not just prompts, but system instructions as well. The default is just telling the model that this is part of an AI system. But if you have a custom prompt here, you can do a typical kind of like, you are an expert comic book writer, right? And then play around with how that system instruction changes the output. And again, when we go into that console and you start running this, you can see all those interim outputs come out. That's a good way to kind of gut check what you've done here. The other thing you can do here, so for image generation, for example, when you open up advanced settings, you see aspect ratios. So you can change that set.
Perfect.
If you have
Yeah.
video generation, you also have different things. And then even for things like user input, you can say input is required. And that's actually fresh off the press. But if
Nice.
you want the user to not be able to continue, then you check that checkbox and then you force them to upload something before you continue with the rest of your workflow. And you can also kind of control here what you're requesting users to upload.
Ooh, I like that you have any as an option.
And a lot
Maximum
of times we
flexibility.
default to that. Yeah, exactly. Because you never really know what people want to input. And sometimes AI does a really good job with any modality. So that's actually a really nice way to do it is like, tell us about your day. And you can upload an audio recording. You can type text. You can upload a doc. And all of that works.
Very cool. Well, I have just three more quick questions for you. The first one is, so who have you found is using Opal the most in terms of like their role or use case, or is it really broad? Like, would you say that there's anyone in particular who's really leaning into it, whether that's, people in marketing or people on engineering, spinning on prototypes? Who would you say is like most Opal friendly?
Yeah, great question. And to your point, it is pretty broad. And we've been a little bit surprised by the main kind of reasons people come to Opal. One bucket is kind of people just trying to automate repeatable tasks. So a lot of times this tends to be like knowledge workers. It's not even specific roles though. I've been really surprised to see that it's everyone from we've had lawyers create opals a lot, which is really interesting. We've had PMs, which was more expected, kind of creating tools for their team or kind of doing similar workflows to what I've shown and talked about our team using them for. But we've also heard a lot of technical developers prototyping within Opal and using it as a way to kind of test different tools and combination of model calls. So that's kind of one main thing here is being able to create this custom workflow and use it again and again. So that repeatability, it's almost like the use case is more common than the profile of the user, which has been really interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And where would you like to take Opal from here? Into 2026. Do you have any big ideas, or what's your long term vision for it? I guess.
Yeah. I think for next year and just in general, kind of the future, what we're really excited about as a team is thinking about how Opal allows people to just make things. It really lowers the barrier to being able to create useful things. So, not just fun things. I think when we first launched this product, we thought people were going to create like fun GIF creators or like a meme generator. And we were really surprised by people's creativity, but also their utility, like the way that they were able to create these things that solve very specific pain points in their own lives or their own workflows. And that's got us really excited to think through how do we scale that and make AI something that feels custom to you or your specific team or your specific problem. Like a good example is even people were creating custom kind of job application opals, like to help them find very specific types of jobs. And they were finding things that they weren't finding when they were just browsing the internet, right? Looking on different job boards.
That's interesting because, yeah, you showed us at the beginning you can tie in web search as part of this. So you can, and deep research, I think, is in here too. So you could
Yeah.
actually create a pretty powerful workflow to help you search and find niche things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's what's really inspiring for us is seeing people kind of push the bounds of what's possible to just make stuff. And I think that's the vision we have is how do we continue to make that easier for people to kind of explore the bounds of what they have in mind and actually build it. And so with that in mind, we're kind of saying, all right, well, what might it look like to be able to use the things you make more easily? And so a big part of where we want to go is saying, all right, right now we know that we're desktop primarily, right? Especially with things like a visual editor, but we started by looking at kind of what we built in Gemini and saying this feels a little bit more friendly, a little bit lighter. How do we bring kind of some of that ease of use that our kind of Opal Labs gems introduces and merge it with our Opal standalone editor and kind of continue to build this product in a way where it's easier to create and use your opals from mobile, maybe from different parts of your life, and kind of make it easy to create custom software for any specific problem or kind of paper cut that you have.
I can't believe I didn't even mention this, but I noticed that there's a microphone there. So you could, in theory, do this all with voice prompts as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what you see here is actually a microphone just for the edit step, but you can also do that with creation. So in this zero state, you could enter in what you're trying to build, it transcribes it. But you could also build, and this is an interesting use case, is I don't know if I have it here, but you can create kind of like podcasts as well. So you can
Oh, awesome.
imagine generating podcasts or uploading an audio note, just like a rambling audio note, and then creating an app that takes that audio note and then transcribes it or summarizes it or transforms it in some way into some other type of asset. So it could be really good for on the go. But that's the kind of thinking is how do we make it easier and easier for people to not just create, but access the things that they're making?
Very cool. Last question for you. If I'm using Opal for the first time, what's the first thing I should create?
Ooh, such a good question. Um, I would say think of the most annoying thing that you experience in your daily life and then try to build something that makes that like slightly less annoying. I mean, we started with that example of that kind of like recipe leftover chef app, but that's a good
Yeah.
example because then I think you can actually test it. I think what's really cool about AI is you can build things that are just useful, not just things that are fun. And sometimes they're both, like that recipe leftover chef app.
Yeah,
But think
definitely
about
both.
that type of, yeah, exactly. Think about something that's really annoying for you and then see what it might look like to build an AI solution to make it slightly better for you.
Love it. Where can people go to try Opal?
Go to opal.google. Yes, that's the full URL. You can also add .com, we'll reroute you. But opal.google takes you to this visual editor. And then you can also go to the Gemini app and check out the Gems tab. So Gems Manager, you'll see Opal right at the top there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining, Megan, and showing us Opal. This is really cool. I think people are going to love it.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
To anyone watching, please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you haven't yet, also make sure you check out the Neuron.ai. That's where you can sign up for our newsletter and join 600 and some odd thousand other people who read it every morning. We'd love for you to be one of them. And on that note, farewell for now, humans. We'll see you next time.